Foreign Secretary, there have been repeated reports of Israeli forces opening fire on Palestinians who are trying to get food at humanitarian aid distribution centres. Reports suggest that in the last few weeks around 1,000 people have been killed. Will you do more than just condemn that and actually step in to try and make it stop?
A few weeks ago, I announced sanctions on Israeli ministers. I've also announced sanctions on settlers because of the violence and the expansion that we are seeing in the West Bank. I've also restored funding to UNRWA. I suspended arms sales to Israel because of my concerns about a clear risk of a breach of international humanitarian law. The global community is coming together, and yesterday's statement with 28 other foreign ministers calling for that aid to get in, calling for this war to come to an end, calling out the sickening scenes we're seeing of children being killed as they wait for food is important. It's important to get the Israeli government to change course with the way it is prosecuting this war in Gaza and the new system that they've put in place for humanitarian aid. It's important that Hamas understand that we are watching them too, and they too are responsible for getting to the ceasefire that the whole global community want to see.
Critics will argue that there's a gap between what you're saying and what you're actually doing. If you actually wanted this to stop, you could suspend all arms sales to Israel. So why won't you do that?
The UK government have suspended all direct arms sales to Israel that could be used in Gaza. It is wrong to suggest otherwise. Of course.
You suspended 29 licences. There are still more than 200 in place. What's the line here? At what point do you suspend all of those?
The UK government has suspended all arms for use in Gaza. We have the most robust export licensing regime in the world, and it is the case that there are licensed exports, sometimes because we're sending a chemical to a university, or indeed we are sending kit to a journalist or an aid worker to keep them safe, that we have not suspended. But arms that could be used by the IDF are suspended and cannot be used in Gaza. And the British public should be reassured that the government took that decision in September and has acted on it since.
But Palestinians have been driven out of roughly 85 to 86% of Gaza's territory. There's now 2 million people in a 20 square mile radius. I just want to quickly read you a quote. Gaza will be entirely destroyed and the Palestinian people will leave in great numbers to third countries. Do you know who said that?
15%.
Do you know who said that quote?
You tell me.
So that was said by Bezalel Smotrich, who's a minister in the Israeli government. I'm going to read you another quote. Permanent forced displacement is a violation of international law. Do you know who said that? That was said by you, Foreign Secretary, yesterday in the House of Commons. So when you've got Israeli ministers saying quite openly that they're willing to violate international law, and that's by your definition, why don't you take them at face value and suspend all cooperation until you know for sure they won't do that?
Let's be clear. We have got no free trade discussions going on with Israel. We have sanctioned Israeli ministers. Yesterday, when we came together with foreign ministers, we said that we would act further. What we want to see is a ceasefire. It's my expectation that we will see a ceasefire take place after the Knesset rises on the 28th of July. This war must come to an end. I'm very, very clear about that, and so are our other foreign ministers. When I look at the children who are being killed, waiting for food, when I think about a population as densely populated as Gaza is, now held within a 15% of the country, the most densely populated area on the planet, all of this is egregious. We have asked the Israeli government to think again. We've told them that their aid system isn't working. We've told them to stop prosecuting this war and this conflict. And we're absolutely crystal clear now that this war must come to an end. We must see a ceasefire, and there must now be an agreement.
You've got Israeli ministers openly saying they're willing to violate international law. You've had 60,000 Palestinians who've been killed so far. Are you confident that the UK will be on the right side of history with this?
I have condemned some of the language that we've seen from the Israeli government in the past few days, and particularly the statements from Minister Katz. But I note too that former prime ministers of Israel have condemned his statement. I note also that 83% of the Israeli public want to see a ceasefire. And the reason they want to see a ceasefire, because they know it's the only means for the hostages to come out. The UK government has been consistent throughout that we cannot be complicit where we assess that there's a clear risk of a breach of international humanitarian law. I took that decision back in September, and I will continue to act to alleviate the suffering. And of course, we are funding lots of support to the Palestinian people, particularly in terms of our support for UK Med and the work they do to ease the suffering medically of those who are injured in Gaza.